Hi textile buddies, I'm Darya, textile and surface pattern designer and painter. On this channel we talk all things artwork, textile pattern and color. Today is going to be slightly unusual video. I want to share with you a fun experience that I've been through as an artist. So I have completed a 100-day art project. You might enjoy this video if you are a multi-passionate creative, or you're just curious about the project itself, or maybe you would like to know a little bit more about my art process. There are different ways to do the 100-day project, modifications and details. You can do it with a group of other people. It can be self-paced too. You can set very concrete goals, or you can just have no goals at all. You just commit to making artwork for 100 days. If you are not subscribed, please do so now. I know it might be a little annoying to hear it in every single video, but for people who create content, it is very, very important that people subscribe and like and watch their videos so that YouTube favorites you a little bit more and shows your videos to other people who might be interested in them. It happened to me a few times that YouTube suggested me videos and I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing content. I don't know if it has ever happened to you, so let's help other textile and art buddies discover this channel. So let's get to business. Why do a 100-day project and how do you do it? Let's discuss all the details. There is an Instagram account called the 100-day project that also does a newsletter, and I'm not very well versed in all the features they offer. When I announced on Instagram that I am joining the 100-day project, an acquaintance of mine, another fellow artist, messaged me with a link. And she said, oh, here is a gift subscription for 1 month. Do you want it? I'm like, okay, I do. So I didn't realize that there is actually a paid subscription to their newsletter. It's not expensive. It's something like $10 or something like that. And they give you like prompts, support, TED Talks and so on and so forth. When I ran out of that 1 free month, I actually unsubscribed. I didn't want to, pay for the subscription because I personally don't really need a lot of like pumping up and TED talking and support. But it's good to know that it exists because it can be helpful for other people. I'm sure it is. Anyways, I wasn't keeping up with that account that much. I just set my own goals and expectations that I described in my announcement reel. This was definitely a very personal project. It started in mid-February of this year, 2024, and I was in a bit of a creative rut, so to say. Before that, I had been actively posting on Instagram, hoping to grow or go viral, if you will. I did it for 2.5 years. I posted 2 times, 3 times daily, and my account, my follower count grew, of course, but nothing close to getting viral. So on the one hand, I was tired of planning and scheduling content, so I thought the 100-day project would bring in some spontaneity and freshness into my art/business life. Another goal of mine for this project was to first explore art beyond patterns. So I mostly did paintings, spot illustrations. I did some patterns as well, but they weren't my primary focus because I feel comfortable enough making almost any kind of patterns. But I do get stuck sometimes thinking, how can I go beyond that? Can I be an illustrator? Can I make other types of commercial artwork? One more sub-goal was to portray things other than flowers because I paint and draw a lot of them, and again feel quite comfortable with them. It's easy for me, so I wanted to paint and draw objects. I even made a hashtag called Objet du jour Darya, object of the day in French. I might have mispronounced it because I'm quite inspired by material culture, which is a fancy way of saying I love stuff. I buy home decor items, some vintage objects such as porcelain pigs, pretty vases, jewelry boxes, and so on. And I have been gathering lots of reference photos to make art from, but I never actually get to do it. So I thought the 100-day project would be an opportunity to tackle those topics. The subtopics I was looking into were still lifes, gardening and botanical gardens, keepsakes, heirlooms, and so on. Another creative challenge for me personally that I have previously mentioned in my video about multi-creatives and perhaps a bunch of other videos is that I like to use different art materials. I could keep everything watercolor illustration theoretically, but I didn't want to. So the 100-day project was a journey exploring my inspiration sources, and it has been one of the most valuable artist experiences in my entire life. I joke that it was quite a selfish project because by the point I began, I had been so tired of trying to please the algorithm, the crowd, fit in a niche, do the right thing, that I just sort of said, screw it all. I'm just gonna do what I like and what I want, and I don't care how commercial this artwork is, and if it is at all. Because when you're a designer, you always have to think, what product will it be and what is the target audience? While for you as an artist, these things can be stifling and kill the joy of creation. That is often the catch that takes place when you turn your passion into a job. You just forget the simple joy that drawing, for example, brought you before it became your profession or a business. So the first batch of art was done in watercolor with ink drawing on top. I was inspired to create a design that would fit in my not-so-junk journal collection. So I drew the motifs in the similar manner. Here they are. And most of them were objects. There were some flowers too, because in order to create a romantic pattern, flower motifs won't hurt. So here they are. I did some birds. I was like, every day was a new little challenge for me. And for example, for these I was like, I need to paint more birds. I think I need more birds in my portfolio. So the passion fruit flower I thought was just really pretty. I've been meaning to paint it for a while. This jewelry box is very small, but it was one of the difficult ones because it's so structured and it has so much detail. This was the very first one, I think, for the project. Yeah, day 1 out of 100, see? And I did those little inscriptions, just sort of, you know, a little touch of diary, and I love doing that. It's kind of my thing, and also a good way to track things. So an object with a flower, because, you know, without this flower, this probably wouldn't be as pretty. So I did some sea theme. So I thought for this has yet to become a pattern. So I wanted to have a good balance of beautiful things, you know, that would look good together. I'll include examples of my not so junk journal collection designs. This is an actual, so I forgot to say that the birds are actually purple. They are purple. So for this little mini section of the project, I was researching for actual purple birds, purple flowers, purple fruits. So, but then I kind of got tired. Like, this is a big, you know, sub collection. It's a lot of objects, right? But because I already have an existing collection like that, I was kind of going with the same vibe. I'll show you some of my other works, which are, you know, not in order, but I sort of ended up with several sub collections. So I did, you know, this was kind of random because it was International Women's Day, and mimosa is the flower that in my culture is associated with this holiday. Then I did some landscape art because I was kind of longing to, you know, I'm a watercolor landscape painter. I do that from time to time, and you know, trees were blooming at the time, so I was inspired to paint some. A little street view. I did this little piece, which I like because it's a different color scheme from what I normally do. This was, you know, spring before everything became very green. I did quite a lot of pencil art. I rediscovered colored pencils for myself. So I really wanted to explore, you know, them as a medium to see what I could do with them. So I did a bunch of different things, and it was a little bit challenging, you know, because I realized it's kind of hard when you have to cover a big area like I did here. So this kind of immediately makes it not contemporary, not trendy. So I was trying to explore like this mini series with a tree, which means something, right? Like walnut means wisdom, and then laurel means victory, obviously. So this is like a mini collection of 3 drawings. Here olive means what? Peace. Olive branch, obviously, right? So I had quite a difficulty drawing the hand. I actually redrew this one quite a few times. So I wanted to explore like how can I combine, you know, colored pencils. These are watercolor markers, so there is quite a lot of colored pencil art in this project. Here to see, like it's watercolor pencil and watercolor actually, and another magnolia blossom. So this was quite a big one. I know it's like, oh, it's so simple, so small, but I actually filmed the whole process and posted a reel on Instagram too. So these are bee friendly flowers, you know, because I started working at the Native Plant Trust and I started being way more invested in, you know, nature preservation and things like that. So another big series here was these illustrations of native New England animals and flowers and plants. So this is a mini collection as well. You know, these were done in gouache with some pencils. So again, I was incorporating pencils here. So these were quite involved. I didn't actually realize it. Like, this was probably the hardest one. See this cute bat? There is a species called little brown bat and a species called big brown bat. So this guy is the big brown bat. See his little grinning face. Hopefully I'm not covering my microphone and making too much noise. So little robin that I see all the time, they are big fat birds, so they don't like flying. They always like run around the yard looking for worms and seeds, whatever. I'm not sure what they eat, honestly. And this guy was the first from this series. So I'm quite happy with this little mini collection, but I feel like people don't respond very well to like a gray background. I don't know, what do you think? So another mini series that I did was called the Found Objects, which I was also very invested personally. I like this idea. So I had different ones. I made a spring one, I made one with porcelain pieces, right? And so this one was inspired by mudlarking, which is digging the river dirt for objects from previous centuries, which is a thing, you can look it up. One more sub collection was tonal. I really wanted to explore tonal drawing and painting. It's been on my mind for a while. So here I played with, you know, ink colors, and then these are some of the final drawings and paintings. So all the pretty blues. Sometimes it's just so these were done in ink, acrylic ink, I believe. And sometimes I added the pencil, like here. Sometimes you just have to pick a pretty ink color. That's what happened here. So those were Liquitex inks. See these beautiful hues of blue, right? Like, I didn't do anything here. I just used, you know, tonal, used more water, less water. So I had fun with this one. These are watercolor pencils, and this like honeydew color scheme is really appealing to me. Here I wanted to test the technique of having, you know, this is also painted in 2 color inks, and then on top I drew with a very thick bamboo pen. So I wanted to explore this, and I keep wanting to make more of these, but I haven't yet. Palm trees, why not, right? So this is definitely going to be a pattern at some point. So by the end of the project, first of all, around the middle of the project, or maybe even like the first third, I got a new job, a part-time job at a garden center, you know, a botanic garden, which of course has taken a lot of my energy, but I was so determined to keep going because I have already gone so far. So by the end, kind of like by the 80th day, I was like, how many more objects? And actually I grew kind of tired with objects quite soon. So I was like, it's okay, I'll just keep making art. I don't have to paint objects unless I want to. So I did this like pretend vintage botanical illustration, Victorian era, with like stamping and all my little writings and, you know, autographs and stuff like that. I also did a random like Father's Day theme art. This was like, I was completely out of steam by this moment. So this was pretty involved. Like, it wasn't that hard to draw, but I actually made the pattern right away. And I also spent some time, there were moments where I was like, I really want to make some new patterns as a part of this project. You know, I don't feel like making more illustrations because 100 days, you guys, is a long time. It's like the third of a year, right? So it's quite a commitment. So I created some patterns, which I actually have some fabric I'll show you now. So I drew the motifs a while ago, but I never got to, you know, build the actual repeat. And as a part of a 100-day project, I made this mini collection of farm birds. So, and then later or maybe like about the same time, Spoonflower dropped some new apparel fabrics, and I ordered, you know, swatches to see. Fat Quarters, actually, there was like a sale. So this one is called Canada Geese, and I actually really like this design. It's like weird and quirky, but it's pretty at the same time, I think, and I personally like unusual colorways. So, and this one is called Lovely Chicken, so it's like a cottage core themed, you know, farmhouse design. This is some kind of new linen, I forgot what it's called, not Belgian linen, the other linen. And this is seersucker. I really like this fabric. Seersucker is a weave. See, it's like striped. It's because the tension of these two are different. We learned that in college, you know, when I studied textile design. We actually wove a seersucker, but it was giant. It was like big stripes. So the way it worked for me, of course, it was very Instagram based. So I wanted to make sure the grid looked cohesive. And all my wild ideas, I always try to transition. So I know, for example, today I painted, I don't know what, like where was I? So from purple, I need to somehow transition, and I know the next thing I want to paint is yellow. So the way I'll do it, and I actually got asked recently, like, how do you keep your Pinterest page so pretty? Thank you so much. I try to make things cohesive and like gradually transitioning. So if I have to, you know, post these two, I'm never gonna post them together like this. I will post something with like a little bit of purple next and some other colors, and then I will gradually transition on my grid, you know, to red. So I wanted to show you just, you know, a little bit of behind the scene process. So this is my sketchbook, and I would, you know, pinpoint ideas like, oh, okay, these are the things I want to draw. I'm interested in doing like a whole so here it says Magnolia Patterns, the next one is Magnolia Plein Air, and then a landscape, you know, found objects. So like I said, I'm trying to make it visually cohesive. And I will also go on Instagram and show you some of the, you know, behind the scene process. And you know, it's always a challenge when you are inspired by so many different things to make things look cohesive. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why I don't have that many followers, is that I guess people don't see like my thought process, and they are confused by like all the different art mediums. Maybe they are not, maybe I'm overthinking it. What do you think? How, you know, how do you feel about my Instagram? Do you kind of understand like what kind of artist I am, or is it like all over the place? You can share feedback in the comments. Also, another thing, on days when I was not inspired or I just was too busy or too tired, I used art that I drew previously, which is a little bit sneaky. But again, I wasn't trying to cheat anybody. I always posted something that I had never posted before, so it was technically new art. So these were the ones that I kind of drew in the downtime, and then when I had particularly difficult days, you know, because I started a new job and I did different stuff, so I used these as fillers and as transition, you know, elements. There is some artwork that I wasn't very happy with, but I still posted it, you know, for example, this piece for St. Patrick's Day. I don't know, I tried again to incorporate markers in my illustration, and I don't know, it's not terrible, but I'm not very proud of this one. Also, this piece, I don't know if I mentioned, but I realized I have trouble organizing like stuff around the object. Maybe because I'm a textile designer, it's easy to draw the object, right? I wanted to do some baskets, so I did the basket, but then I was like, what happens around it? And I didn't have the time to do a super detailed illustration, so I was like, okay, I'll do a letter. So I don't know why. Also, very often when I make art, right away I don't like it in most cases. Then when time passes by, I'm like, it's actually not bad, like I don't hate it right now. Maybe it's not the most engaging illustration, but it works, you know. If could be some lettering, like it could be a card, I think. So I'm going to hop on my Instagram and talk about my inspiration sources and the thought process behind my art pieces. It's going to be a look inside a scanner's brain. If you don't know who a scanner is, watch my video about multi-creatives. So let's take a look at my 100-day project. This is me, this is my Instagram parent talent. Subscribe if you are not subscribed yet, or follow, right? I always mix up subscribe and follow. So see, this is the end. This was the last day. Where is it? here, this iris, 100 out of 100. See, this is where we are. So May 27th, and let's scroll all the way back. All this art, take a look. Almost there. So here we are. This is my announcement reel where I'm saying I must be crazy because I'm doing the 100-day project, and there is an explanation here if you care to read. Feel free to go and read. So, and then I started with this little bouquet, and this was the beginning of the purple series, like I mentioned. And like I said, here I'm departing from the usual subject matter slowly. Flowers, right? It was scary, you guys, you know, doing new things, it's always scary. So then we have this purple series here. And see, I also realized at some point that I need to keep posting some patterns, because otherwise there will only be illustrations, and if someone goes to my Instagram, they need to be able to understand that I'm a surface pattern designer. So I started breaking it up with patterns that match, you know, visually. And this is some old stuff, these guys. So still the purple series. Then I post those little tiny tutorials which were once very popular on my account, and then they kind of subsided. So the next one, I was like, I'm fed up with the purple theme. The next one was a little cottagecore collection, which, you know, was like Easter theme. This is the first one, which was kind of accidental, the first from the found object series. And this one I finished it very quickly. It was very easy to do, and it was actually quite popular. See, for my account it's a lot of likes, so I was happy. Then I was still exploring the illustration part. I also realized here that this paper doesn't take as much, rubbing and scrubbing, so I used masking tape, my masking fluid here. It didn't take it very well. This is very like porous, thick paper. And I also realized, you know, your impression can be ruined if you're using the wrong paper. It happened to me before, and it happened again. I started bringing in more patterns. So this was another one. So I was struggling with this one. I was struggling with the composition. I was struggling with the paper a little bit. What do you think of this cottagecore series here? So then here I wanted to do baskets. So how many baskets did I do? Oh yes, so 1, 2, 3, because we're still in the object, right, object of the day theme. So 3, another one. And then I was like, I want to do another found object series. So I digitally altered the background color. This one I think I did at like midnight. Yeah, 11:30 here. Not easy, not easy. This is a Procreate video, which you probably know is not my thing at all. But I was like, maybe I should force myself yet again to do some Procreate. See, very, very few views, very few likes. So apparently, when you do something that is not your thing, it might not even be as popular. Another found object, and look at the difference when you post like a photo in daylight and when you scan something. Do I need to say anything else for presentation, not representation? And I was like, oh, I actually sell silk scarves too. So I posted. No, actually here I knew that I was going to do. So here I was inspired by cloches, right? I have to look up the pronunciation of this word. Here I knew it was going to be something coastal. That's why I posted my coastal scarf here. And I had fun with this one. I enjoy using all sorts of craft paper. It's fun, but sometimes, you know, it doesn't really translate well to a product, to like a scanned illustration. It looks cute on the paper itself. Then here I was still trying hard to do illustrations. Did this little like tattoo art kind of thing. Oh, look, a spam comment. I need to delete this one. Alrighty, so another coastal thing, coastal found objects, also with the altered background. I added texture here as well. This is an old drawing, like the oyster, so I cheated here. I took the oyster, I added the background, which is my, repeating pattern I did. I added all my little, mysterious writings here. So this was the first day that I wasn't able to create new artwork. Then I wanted to kind of keep this scheme going, and I did one more. This was so difficult, and like drawing this, for me it's like not my comfort zone. I was inspired by old maps, obviously, but this wasn't like, see, wasn't very popular. This one I don't like. Again, I was like, I want to use pencils. How can I make pencils look cool? And I don't know, what do you think? This little harp. It was St. Patrick's Day, so. And then this one I mentioned, see, I added a cream background. Then I was like in my acute pencil era here. I went to this place called the Lemon Estate Greenhouses to see camellias in bloom, and I was really inspired by it. So I made this reel, which is also a form of creativity, right? And we'll get to camellias eventually. I don't want to force you to watch the entire reel, but there will be like beautiful camellias, and that's why I drew this one. This one I was inspired by an artist I saw on Instagram. I think I looked up the hashtag colored pencil drawing or something like that. And I really liked her like sketchy style, and you know, learning to draw, sketches were considered preliminary, not, you know, the final product. And her art is so free and so loose, and I was so inspired. So I'm actually really happy with this one. And see, I know like pencil is showing through here, but I have actually been really inspired by this like raw quality. I probably even mentioned it here somewhere, or maybe in, you know, later drawings. And then I also painted, you know, camellias. Here are the camellias. I painted them in these colorful bright watercolors, Dr. Martin's watercolors, which are very vivid, as you can see. So these will be good patterns eventually too. And by transitioning here, I also made, this is a recolor, so it used to be yellow originally. This is the original design, and this is the original painting. And I digitally changed the color to, you know, red and orange. This was supposed to be light blue background, but when it actually prints on fabric, it's very light. So I need to adjust the color. Then I was like, you know, in that Lemon Estate greenhouse, I saw little bonsai trees with fruit. So I was like, I want to draw one of those, and I drew this little fruit tree in a porcelain pot, and then I did more of this vibe. You know, this is an old design of mine, so this was cheating as well, but I admitted it here. So this is a motif from one of my old designs, but I added this little frame and, you know, the writings, which were added later as well. See, it's 2020. So this was the pattern that I mentioned. This is the final product, and I made like colorways on the same day. So like an extensive day of work in the life of a surface pattern designer. Then I was like, I need to move on from lemons somehow. And then there was the ice cream challenge on Spoonflower, so I did this. And then I needed to, you know, I needed to show this to people. And then I needed to depart from the ice cream and onto my next like pencil drawings. This is the series that I showed you, and I did a new design with olives. I was inspired by olives at the time. This is also an old design, but I've never showed it anywhere before. This is the first time I posted it. And these butterflies are also not new, but I made a new composition. I added this textured paper in the background as well. This is an old design because the bunny was coming up, see? Then this is my native series. I did 3 at first. Then I was like, oh, I really want to try using pencils for landscape, which I haven't done before. So I did this. This is a picture of my neighbor's house with this, not house, but like backyard, front, side yard. And these flowers are called scillas, and they always really inspire me. I like blue flowers, so I did a little mixed media piece with all possible mediums like crayons and watercolor pencils and whatnot. I showed you this one. Here is the original photo as well. This is my car, lonely car, and there's the story here of this painting. I've had some good feedback on it. And this one, I wanted to paint the pre-greens spring. So this is the original photo. See, like green is just starting to pop back up after winter, and I was really inspired by that moment. When I painted it, I hated it, this like dark water, but now I actually really like it. I think it's so different. The color palette is so different from what I normally do, so I like this one. Then I decided to do more of the native wildlife and flora. So I did the guy with I did the bat guy. I actually forgot to mention that in the botanic garden that I work at, there is a t-shirt with a bat, and it's very popular. So apparently there are bat lovers out there, and there is also a group on Facebook called Wild Green Memes, and there people adore bats and snakes and frogs and beautiful creatures like that. I think he's very, very cute. So this is like a pretty cheesy for me, I'm like so cranky. I'm always like, this is not original enough. But you know what? Sometimes you have to do something commercial and easy to understand. And I think this is a good example. Maybe not the best crop for Instagram, but I was like, it's all right, it works. Then the tonal series begins. I was like, I'm fed up with the native animals. I want to do some tonal artwork. It was fun. See, for a while I transitioned from green into blue slowly. This was like a 10-minute thing, but apparently people appreciate it. And like I mentioned, I like my own posts. I'm not embarrassed by it. And I encourage you to do the same. Why not, right? Let's normalize liking your own posts. Then I wanted to do one inspired by tiles. This was difficult for me. I struggled with it. It's like a lot of detail, and I got bored by like the center here. So because I like painting loose, but at the same time, I really like this old style, old school, like botanical illustration kind of. And again, playing with pencils. And I mentioned that these two were like the ones I painted a couple days before, so those were really busy days for me, so I couldn't create new artwork, but I haven't shared it before. Here, can you guess why this is here? Because we are transitioning into the bloom era, right? The trees were starting to bloom, and that is my favorite time of the year. I adore when trees are blossoming. It's gorgeous. And here, this is an old design which I think is completely underrated. It was one of those spoonflower design challenges where everything went askew and AI jumped in, and like an AI entry won by accident. Then it was taken down, but I got a terrible low number of votes, which I think is very unfair. I think it's a great design. I hope you support me. And then here I actually had quite a few pre-painted flowers which I hadn't put in repeat yet, so I decided to take a chance on this like spring theme. I put things in repeat, so I made new repeating patterns. And this was again a new time for me, where previously I always submitted the best artwork to design challenges on Spoonflower. Here I was like, okay, I'll just make the repeats and I'll just post them on Spoonflower. Of course, they're not getting as much exposure as the design challenge entries, but now there are fewer challenges, so you can't enter everything into a challenge. I made these new repeats from previously painted flowers, which I haven't really shared much. All these were new. This was all new repeating patterns. This was a new landscape painting. I was still inspired by the pink trees. And then I also did, this illustration where I wanted to use pencils. Pencils were my jam for this project. And this one I painted again with watercolor. It was a new painting for the project. I also made a reel. I don't know why it's not showing up here. I think I just wanted to draw a little bit more attention to this design because it was new. Because like I mentioned in my previous videos, you have to promote your own artwork. Then, I did this found object spring design, and we are on day 64. I hope you're not bored. Oh no, not 64, sorry, 71. We're almost there. I actually really like this one. It's very subtle and sweet and clean, and the paper was cooperating. It was still that thick bed paper. And see, I thought I would get like more likes, but that's okay. That's okay. Then I was inspired to do like a bee theme, because I haven't really painted a lot of bees. Bees are a popular motif, so this was my compromise. I was like, it's a commercial thing and I actually really like it and I'm inspired, and let me do this. So this queen bee thing illustration, which was very small, it was from a small notebook. I'll show you one of the following ones. As a part of this project, I also learned to paint smaller, because normally I paint large, medium and large, and painting smaller is difficult for me. So I was challenging myself to paint and draw smaller, and I used gouache here, and I used pencils on top, and the background is digital paper, and I changed the color to blue so it kind of matches, because the original notebook, let me show you, is gray. It's gray paper. Here, I don't know if you can see, it's the same notebook. It's like very light gray, and it influences all the colors. It affects all the colors around the drawing. This was quite a popular reel. I know, maybe it's ridiculous, like 49 likes, but I appreciate and see me from all of my accounts liking my own posts. Go me, right? Sometimes, you know, I'm inspired to make like a video. I also take it as a part of creativity. It's also a creative product, right? Making videos. So this is gouache, and I also wanted to use pencils on top. Pencils were still ruling at the time. And then I showed you this one, which was quite an extensive illustration. And then here's the process, which is quite a lengthy reel. If you feel like watching it, feel free to go on my Instagram and watch it. I would really appreciate that. So this is a filler that was drawn. It was, remember, from that era where I did a little orange tree in a porcelain pot. So here, so that was like, oh, I want to do more little trees in little pots. That's why I did that one. So then I was like, I really want to do more of tonal ones. There were tonal ones before, so I did this purple one because I had that purple ink that I wanted to test. This was a filler. Here I was absolutely exhausted, and this is like a trash reel, but it has a lot of views. I don't know why, but you know, I also opened a new notebook for this one, and I was testing out new pens. I actually bought a lot of new pencils when I was doing this. I am notorious for like overspending a little bit. I am guilty, I admit it. I buy, like, things inspire me in general, in particular art materials too. So then I was like, okay, since I made this, I didn't have much time, so I did this like quick pillow illustration. How do I, you know, transition to something next? Here I started struggling with like the topics, and we're already on day 80, so I thought, you know, since we're on pillows here, we should continue with the home decor theme. And I did again this gray paper, this little lamp, which was a very quick sketch. And then I used it. I was like, oh, I'm a pattern designer. Time to post a pattern again. And then was my next like era. I was like, I've been meaning to combine, you know, pencils, maybe pens, watercolor washes, and stamping. So this was my new like style experiment, and with my little mysterious doodles, which I like to do. And I really like this flower as well. It's really, really pretty, I think. Then I did a peony with some stamps and pencils. I like this little series. I could do like an entire collection of flowers, but then I was constantly feeling guilty. I was like, I wasn't going to paint flowers. Why am I doing this? But I am a flower girl, of course. This was another one. I think it's my favorite from this series. Crown Imperial. This is a beautiful, beautiful flower. Look it up. I want to plant it in my garden one day. This was an old painting which was kind of sitting in the folder, but I added like the drawings and stamps on top, so I kind of made a new illustration out of it. You know, see, I can be an illustrator. It just has to be a specific type, like the botanic illustration, or like the wildlife or the botanic garden illustration. Here I was completely exhausted, day 85. So these three I painted probably 2 or 3 years ago, but I never showed them anywhere. So I was like 87 of 100 May 14th, which is a lie. But again, I hope you understand me. We have to make things work. Then I was like, let's see, why did I do this? Oh, I was inspired to do more marker art and more animals. So I did these 3 patterns, and I know it looks like just, you know, 3 slides, but it's a lot of work, you know, to put things in repeat. But they were drawn before I showed you the fabrics. So these are some mock-ups. And I like this little collection. It's called Farm Dwellers on my Spoonflower, and I want to make more products with it. I really like this design. And later on, just like last week, I made one more colorway for this guy and entered it in Seek and Find design challenge, I believe. So this was kind of random and this was drawn on a day where we had no lights, so an electrician was working on our house. I was drawing in the dark in my studio. So I wanted to do, like, I haven't really done a lot of artwork in my life with like fish and fishing and stuff like that, Father's Day, outdoors. I have some patterns like that, but not many. And I actually used to go fishing with my dad, which I, described in one of these posts. I forgot which one. So here we see these crabs because I needed to show people that I entered this design in a design challenge. So I was like, hey, because if you want people to vote for you, you need to show them that this is my design, because Spoonflower Design Challenge preview very often doesn't do justice to the design. And here I was like, man, what should I do? I was very, very tired. So this is day 95. And I was like, I was inspired by red flowers at the time. And actually, as you can see, I like the color red quite a lot. It's one of my favorite colors. It's the color of life. It's the color of love and passion and blood. And it's one of those primary colors, it's one of the pattern talent colors. If you go on my website, see, here red is present, but if you go to my portfolio, red, and it's not accidental, my brand colors are like cream, black, and red, because I wanted to do something like the original patterns, the primordial pattern thing, like the cave drawings, and it was always red ochre and black charcoal, and then the cream signifies like vintage aged fabric. So this is why. So see, things are very deep sometimes. So, and I noticed that this year red is actually a very trendy color. Normally it's like a Christmas thing, which I hate when people in the United States are like, oh, you're wearing red, like this would be a great Christmas outfit. Shut up. You can wear red all year round. So I was happy to see, and I bought this blouse as well. I was like, oh, red is trending, yay, we are officially allowed to wear red outside of the Christmas season. So I drew some red flowers, and here these are actually watercolor markers, chunky big markers by Faber-Castell, and I wanted to see what happens if I combine, watercolor markers and pencils together. I kind of like the result, and you can't even tell that it's markers right away, right? I think they kind of look like paint, like ink, like watercolors, something painterly, which is my jam. So here I needed to keep going somehow, like since I started something so red, and see, I transitioned from blue, and this was intentional. When I did the mock-up, I knew that I was planning to do red here, so I positioned blue here, so we transitioned from this one, and then red is on this side. This is all very intentional. It's again for those people who are asking, how do I make my Pinterest look so cohesive? And it's because I post the same content. Instagram is my primary source, and then I simultaneously use this program called Later to schedule all my content, on all these social media. I adjust it a little bit. I don't see, something didn't post actually on Twitter. Something went, I don't know, maybe the size, okay, whatever. So sometimes I think, oh, this is not a good one for LinkedIn, so I'll uncheck it. And like Pinterest, I don't always post everything everywhere, and you have to adjust the caption too, because obviously for Twitter it has to be short. On some media you can only post like one photo, some allow several photos. If you would like a video about it, let me know. Okay, let's go back to Instagram. We're almost there. These were old as well. I drew them like years ago, but I never shared them, so it counts, right? Paper was actually cream color, so this is the actual color. I just enhanced it a little bit, and those are very, very bright watercolor pencils or something like that, like crayons. I forgot what they're called. So that's my 100-day project. So some things I realized as a result of this project are: 1, First, as a true scanner, I learned once again that my inspiration is super fleeting. It is very hard for me to commit to a long-term project. For example, to draw 50 birds. I'm not saying I can't do it. I can, but I will be dying on the inside while I'm doing it. I need to break it up with something else, kind of like I did, like I just showed you with the mini-series, native plants and so on. So the 100-day project teaches you to pay attention to your inspiration because as it turns out, it expires. If you don't get to work soon enough and a week or so passes, you realize this topic doesn't inspire you anymore. Are you like this too? Write it in the comments. Number 2, I realized once again that art materials themselves are a huge inspiration source itself for me, because sometimes I don't really know what I want to draw, but I know I really want to paint in gouache and so on. And like I mentioned, I rediscovered my love for colored pencils and markers. I pulled out lots of them from the drawers and had fun. Number 3, I confirmed yet again that I don't really enjoy doing trivial and commercial illustrations such as lighthouses or birds or stuff that people generally buy. That's definitely a tricky one. I don't know if there's something to be proud of, but I like finding original solutions, interesting ideas, new angles and nuances. I'm not saying that birds are not pretty, of course they are, and you see I did some birds, but I'd rather find a bird that is not portrayed that often, or it has to be a subject that interests me on a personal level, like a bat, for example, or a hummingbird. I'm fascinated with the species, I look them up, I do some research and then jump in. Number 4, another confirmation that I don't really enjoy is that I struggle a little bit doing illustrations that are not meant to be patterns. Creating motifs is easy for me personally, but if it's meant to be a book cover or a greeting card, I can do something simple, but it doesn't come easy to me. I can imitate others' work, but I really wouldn't like to, and I haven't found a style of my own for that. And that's a problem I've had for years, and I can't figure out whether it's because I lack knowledge. I occasionally have those periods when I think of going to college for illustration or finding a course on it, but it's more of dreaming. So whether it's the lack of knowledge or I'm just not an illustrator, I'm more of a fine artist, a painter. And it might also be that I'm just unconsciously trying to be good at everything. Number 5. Doing the 100-day project reminded me that creativity and imagination are my strengths. I'm usually so focused on business and sales that sometimes I forget about the creative part. People have commented multiple times throughout this project that they love my ideas. For example, the subjects I have picked. I do love storytelling, even through simple illustration. For example, in the found object series, they might look very simple, but there is so much research that goes behind them. Like with that mudlarking project, right? Or the coins, and I'm not saying I look up every single coin, but I try to make things realistic. I try to look up, for example, in this, native series illustration, for example, the first one with a bunny, I specifically picked it. It was early spring, and I was like, what is the early spring wildflower? So hepatica is, and I always looked, a bat. If it's a bat, it should be on a tree, so it should be a native tree, and then underneath the tree is a fern. So that's how I do most of my things. Number 6, I realized that the preliminary stage of art making is one of the hardest, if not the hardest one for me. You know how you get inspired by a million of things and ideas floating in the air, but the magic happens when you actually find the time and intention to draw or paint something. Most of my ideas remain ideas forever, but those that inspire me so much as to take action, those become illustrations and patterns eventually. I think there is pure magic in this transitional moment, but it can be so hard to sit down to work. So the 100-day project forces you to find time for thinking and gathering references. Very often I spend as much time on research as the art making itself, if not more. Number 7, another realization related to being multi-creative is that I actually can carry an idea through if I want to. I've done multiple series within this project. For example, I had a plan for the purple series and I followed through. So as an option, you can either have a plan and go with it, or abandon the plan. For example, I got bored with a cottagecore mini-series and I moved on from it, and by the end of the project I even moved on from the objects as the theme for the whole challenge and started painting plants, which is also an interesting revelation. Maybe it turns out that plants are something that really draws me in and inspires me. Number 8, you can experiment with new things but also linger on a topic or get back to it later in the project. I think it's very interesting to observe what things move you and continue to attract you as you go on creating for 100 days. Each new artwork can lead to something new. Sometimes it's good to wake up in the morning and decide what the artwork would be for today versus having planned it too far in advance. It all is so much fun. It's creative play. Number 9, the project teaches you to speed up your turnaround time. First, you have to decide on an idea, gather references, sketch, choose a medium if you work in different ones, as you probably know I do, execute, scan and take pictures, post. The commitment to post it with the community pushes you to make art consistently and do those steps. And it's not easy. It's very important to mention it that I paused quite a few projects to do this one. It's a big commitment. Of course, nobody forces you to do it, and you can always stop rather than stress about it because life circumstances can change. But it's so satisfying to know that I have completed the entire project. Single illustrations are a little quicker than doing a pattern where you have to scan, clean and put things in repeat. So the necessity to keep going and speed up, spend less time on rumination and procrastination is a great prevention of creative block when you get stuck. You can get stuck because you have to keep going with a project. Of course, there were days when I forced myself to draw. I was totally not in the mood for it, but I think it can be a good exercise because when making art is your job, you're not always inspired, but you have to keep showing up anyways. It's one of the fundamental principles of success, showing up to do your work no matter what. I have to say, I was exhausted at the end and took a break from Instagram for about a week, which gave me a massive FOMO. I'm still getting into the habit of posting again. I haven't been posting as consistently as I used to before. I also need to think how to repurpose art that I made, maybe make more patterns or include something in my portfolio now that the fun part is over and I have this bulk of new artwork. It's time to think how it can serve me. But I actually prefer working this way, from a place of my choice and my true inspiration, rather than designing specifically for a customer or a market. It's just a personal preference, not a call for action. I'm not saying that's the way you should be working. So what are your thoughts on the 100-day project? Have you ever done it? Have you considered it? Or maybe you like other art challenges? Share in the comments below. I also forgot to mention that I attempted the 100-day project before, but I didn't complete it. It was right before I went to college for textile design, and I was like, okay, since I'm going to learn how to make patterns, I might as well try. And I had no knowledge on creating repeats whatsoever. And of course, most of those weren't very good, but there are there are a couple patterns which are actually quite good, and I've put them in repeat much later. I will include them here. At that time, I didn't complete the project. I think I did like 30 days and I kept missing days. But this time, I was really determined to finish, and I did it, and I'm very proud of myself. But it's definitely not easy. If you've enjoyed this video, I would appreciate your like. It's a free equivalent of saying thank you. And don't forget to subscribe, share this video with your art buddies, and remember, patterns are everywhere. The heat is getting me. It's a very hot day. It's 98 degrees today and it's 37 degrees Celsius. Obviously I can't use air conditioning in, you know, recording, so woo, I have cold tea here.